3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. I'm Fahima Mohammed, your host and relationship coach. A very warm welcome from all of us here on British Muslim TV, wherever you're watching from around the globe, whether it's on Sky Channel 752, Facebook or Twitter. We love having you join us and support us, as well as sending in all your messages and questions. And tonight is no different. We would love you to have your participation, whether it's calling live into the studio by dialing in 01924231083. Do ask the bill payer's permission, as standard network rates do apply. However, we have another option, and that is to contact us via our free WhatsApp service, and you can do so anonymously. And that number is 07585 835 150. We have another discussion around relationships. We have so much ongoing, continuous messages with regards to the issues and the challenges that do happen in our community. That's why it's so important to address this. And we have a wonderful guest with us today to share her insights, her experience, her work, and professional views so that we can actually answer the question tonight, which is how to show up for a successful relationship. With us to discuss this tonight, we have Amrin Razak. Assalamu alaikum, Amrin.
Wa alaikum salam, Fahima. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's so lovely to see you. How's things with you?
Alhamdulillah, really good, busy, just like yourself.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Now, for the viewers, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what do you do? What's a wellness emotional mindset coach?
Okay, so Jazakallah firstly for the opportunity. I'm really grateful to be here. So I'm a counsellor, I'm a life coach, I'm an NLP practitioner, and I'm a Writing to Heal coach. So all things holistic and emotional healing in a nutshell.
Amazing. Yes. That's absolutely wonderful. You do a lot of things. That's why I'm so happy to have you tonight, because it's so important that we discuss this topic. We always talk about what is it that we expect from our partner, what we're looking for, and how do we get there. But we want to take a step back and find that, you know, what is it that we have to be in order to get that relationship? Especially when you're single. It doesn't matter if it's your first time or if it's after a relationship that has, you know, broken down. There's always a point where you're single, looking for a partner, and we want to make sure that that journey can also be healthy, can also be positive, can also be where you're single and happy, but ready for the next step. Now, do you think you can be single and happy while looking for a spouse? And if so, how?
I think you have to be single and happy before you get into a relationship, because ultimately what happens is there's so many things you need to work on yourself. And as you said, like before you get into that relationship, you need to be completely at peace and content with yourself, because otherwise what you're going to do is bring in that baggage or those triggers, if you like, into that relationship. And that's not going to be good for nobody, right? So you need to know how to be on your own and content with the current circumstances you're at. And I've got a few tips on how you can do that. So my first thing would be is like when I'm coaching my clients, I coach them to understand who they are firstly. Find who their what's the inner voice, the expression is trying to tell them, right? And I coach them into ultimately to healing, to be totally wholesome by themselves before they take that step. Of course, understanding, like spiritual understanding, being people of excellence, you know, as Aldine teaches us as well. So upskill yourself in different areas of your life, not just professionally, but personally as well. So learn new skills, work on your mental health and well-being, be excellent in what you do. Seeking knowledge, whether that's for your professional capacity or even you want to start something new. Don't be afraid to start new challenges, because when you're going to be faced with any kind of hurdles, if you're not resilient because things don't go the way you think they should go, if you're not trying new things for yourself, and then making your own mistakes and learning from them, how are you going to show up in that relationship? You're going to struggle.
Those are excellent points, Amrin. But before we go any further, I actually already have a Facebook question. Thank you so much for sending that through. I really appreciate it. Basically, somebody's asking, how do we find a true partner if we do find her, how to get started to talking with her? I think we have a lot of issues with regards to approaching that potential partner. If you find her, once it's there, what's your opinion? I know there's so many different scenarios, but let's just talk about this a little bit.
Okay, so let's go into the world of social media, right? I think there's ways to approach it. Be honest, be transparent, say, look, are you single? Are you looking for marriage? If there's a situation, look, we want to start talking. And I say this to brothers, because I know sisters do it, and they approach brothers, but I find that sometimes brothers don't. Don't be afraid to approach it, but approach it in a manner that you would want somebody to approach your own sisters, what I say to brothers, right? Be professional, that, behind a screen, it can come across as really sometimes can come across quite rude, but just be honest, just be transparent. Say, look, I'm seriously considering for marriage. I'd like to speak to you. Can we speak offline? Do you have a mahram, or do you have a chaperone that you'd like me to contact? And then maybe you can take that step. But I think a lot of people are sometimes too afraid, and some people are not. So it's finding the right balance. And I think if you're going to do it through social media, then there's always better ways, because even through a screen, words say a lot. So yeah, just be mindful of the language you use. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's so,
of course, intention, clear intention. Yeah.
Definitely. I think it's so true. And I also think we should also give a shout out to some of the women and men that are actually being approached. Like, don't give the brother and sister a really hard time. And I mean, of course, if they're rude or if they're disrespectful, then yes, don't entertain that. But if somebody is asking, genuinely that they want to get to know you and there is a potential, I think people are only scared because of the responses they get. And we always think worst case scenario to begin with. It's like, why is he coming up to me? Why is she approaching me in this way? And if, we both are looking for relationships, then we have to have an open mind. And as much as the intention comes from the other person, you also have to give that person benefit of doubt and excuses so that you can actually build a dialogue which can be respectful. So it has to be both sides. I think it's really important. What's your sort of points on that? What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I know so many of my friends who've met their other halves and are happily married, alhamdulillah, because the other half decided to message through a third person that was in the friend list, and they did it in such a way, it was still respectful, it was dignified, and it was just transparent. Say, look, I'm interested in you for marriage. Can we talk? Like, how do you want to do this? So just be open and honest. And again, choose your words carefully. So it's all possible.
That's lovely. No, I like that. Yeah. I like that because we do get that question recurringly, and it's important to address it. And I don't mind, having your questions come to us again and again, because there's different people watching, different audiences. So absolutely thankful for people that are interacting and engaging with us. Really, really grateful. Thank you so much. As you were continuing, Amrin, about how to basically, know yourself and have peace and happiness and contentment within yourself first. But, I speak to a lot of people as well, and it's really difficult for someone who has been struggling for years to look for a spouse to find that peace and contentment, because we are obviously brought up, thinking that the next stage, regardless, especially when you're in a Muslim community, as soon as you out of age, like 21 and over, or even 18 sometimes, the next thing you got to look at is for a potential spouse. And then if you've gone through a few years where it haven't happened, then how do you remain? It's okay if you've got a job, if you've got, studies, and you've got good friendships and family, but it can really put you down. I know you've given a few tips there, but can you be a little bit more specific on an individual who is struggling to actually find a spouse and be happy and content in that journey of looking?
It's an amazing question, because obviously it's hard. The struggle is real, right? Let's not pretend. But I think it's owning up to the fact that the struggle is real for men and for women. But what I would say is, as long as you're doing all the things in the right manner to meet a potential, whether it's on an app, whether it's through a relationship coach or a marriage event, whichever way you choose, or whether it's through the community, just making sure your mental health is a priority. So talk about it, speak to people in the know, have a circle of people that are going to support you. So maybe speak to married people, like get advice from them, because I think sometimes when you're just single and you have just single friends, sometimes that's not the right place to be, because what you do want to do is don't feel that, you're not doing enough, but just take the right steps, look after your mental health, be healthy, be positive mind, fitness, find whatever you need to. But as long as you keep trying and you're taking all the right steps, and obviously the power of dua, like nothing can beat that. And when the time's right, Allah will give you what is good for you, but just ask at the early hours when everybody else is asleep. That's all I can say to everyone, on that.
Wow. No, that is so useful. I loved everything that you've said right now. That is so true. I think a lot of us do forget that when we're in that journey, we have to encompass, a personality and a character that's actually also going to attract that spouse. And if you are looking and you're feeling fed up and you're feeling drained and you're feeling down, you're definitely not in the right space to even meet that person, even if they were to walk past you. So it's so true. And we're going to go into more details of those steps. So inshallah, please keep sending in your questions. I love the fact that you raised the mental health issue, because a lot of us can struggle in silence with the disappointment of rejection, or not finding somebody, or not having that spouse come to us, the time that we want. It's really, really difficult. And, this is why we have this show, because we want to raise this to make it real, so that we can actually feel that, we are in a community that is supportive. And if there are people around you, like family and friends, that do not have an idea of what you're going through, then they can understand that. This is a show to give value, to give information, to give insight, because at the end of the day, we want to build the next generation, not just with, happy and positiveness, but to build that family unit is to build a strong society. And that starts with your home. So that's why we have this, because it's so strong to build our communities by building ourselves in our own household. Now we are coming into a short break. Please do stay with us. We have a lot more to discuss here with Amrin. So make sure you stay exactly where you are. And inshallah, we'll be taking more questions, answering more of your queries. But soon we will be back. Take care and see you shortly.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. Really, really fun conversation so far, and really, exclusive to the topic of how to show up for a potential relationship, for a successful relationship. We don't really want to give sort of insights as to get any relationship. We need to be a particular way in order to get that relationship that matches us. I think that's the key, Amrin, right? Is that people forget that we have to be first in order to get and receive, especially that potential relationship. And before the break, you discussed a lot, and you mentioned a bit about the mental health. Like, a lot of us actually don't realize that it can be so stressful. It can bring about so much anxiety, even meeting somebody, or even being single as a Muslim, when you at that age for marriage. And it can create so much tension in the household. It can create arguments between parents and their children. It can even cause so much frustration in oneself. Now, how do you take care of yourself while you're looking for a spouse and it's constantly failures, or it's rejection, or you're just not finding your actual match?
It's really tough. You know what, it's Fahima, I have a lot of people in my network, because I work in the community as well, and obviously through my own clients as well. it's like you're so low mentally and emotionally that you want to kind of get out of your situation, but you don't know how to. So I would say it's like find people who you gauge with, who you trust, who you have a rapport with, and say, look, I need help in this area. Like get a like for me, my journey personally, like it's like 2 years, 3 years ago, I got like a relationship coach because I was like, what am I attracting? Like I was asking these questions to myself, right? I was like, something's not adding up here. I thought I'd worked on everything that I needed to, right? Because we all have our own trauma. And I was like, for me, it was the same question. It was like, I don't want to turn up into a relationship where I've not worked on what I need to work on. So I would say is that be honest about what you need to work on, and don't just want marriage just because you want to get out of your current situation, whether it's at home, wherever who you're living with, because unfortunately what happens is men and women, they're looking to get married, but they're doing it for the wrong intention, in terms of that they think it's going to get them out of their current situation, whether they've been married, they've moved back home because they want to look after the parent, which is all great, and may Allah give everyone the ajr who does that. But in that comes the difficulties and the challenges, because you're kind of split. You're between, we need to look after our parents, but also we want to get married, and then the parents want this kind of XYZ person, and the potential doesn't want that. So I think, you know, look at who your circle is, look at who are in your community that you can liaise with, get a coach, man, like whether it's working on your accountability, whether it's working on your boundaries, whatever it's working on, because once you start working on that, you will come out of the rut that you're in, and then you will see that there is light at the end of the tunnel. That would be my advice, because it's hard, like especially within our communities, it's hard. And just be real, like, and the thing is, what you don't want to do is don't want to leave your current circumstance for the wrong reason, because guess what, that's going to show up in your new relationship, and that's not fair on you, and it's not fair on the other person as well. And it's relentless. The conversations I have with my clients as well was that don't do it for the wrong reasons. Work on yourself now. If you're fed up of living at home or doing whatever you say, get out, get a better job, work on yourself. Then when you're standing up on your own 2 feet, then you'll know when you're ready to take that next step. Yeah,
I absolutely love that. I think what you've said, I can second, 1,000%. That is so true. These are real scenarios. We do have another question from Sister Farzana. She's a real loyal sort of viewer, and I do appreciate your questions and your messages constantly. She says, Salaam alaikum. And as always, an amazing show. Thank you so much for that. And her question is, what is the definition of a successful relationship? And are the expectations of finding the perfect partner with no faults real? Very, very good question. Thank you for sending that across. How would you, tackle that one, especially the definition of a successful relationship? I think that's a brilliant question, actually.
That's a huge question. The thing is, with a successful relationship, right, a partnership is what you want it to be, right? We all have our own expectations. Some of us are far-fetched, and some of us then realize after a while that, okay, we need to be real and look at where we are and what we're going to bring to the relationship. So look at where you're at. Have an honest conversation in terms of what are your, things that are off limits, things that you're not going to compromise on, and things that you are never going to do, from your financial, independence, to how you want to live, where you want to live, what your boundaries are, to even intimacy when you get to that certain stage, right? These are things that need to be talked about before you get to the final stage, because if you don't have this honest conversation, I think you can have your perfect match, but be honest, be transparent, have a mediator if you feel you need that, have some kind of chaperone, and to have these conversations. But ultimately, it's you two have got to be in this marriage and want it to work, and I think perfection, I think it's what you can, I wouldn't say perfection, it's what you can tolerate of each other, is what I can say in a nutshell.
No, I like that, because I think that word perfection has really skewed our identity of, what is it that we're looking for and ourselves. And then at the same time, what the expectations are, which, like you mentioned, is not real. We need to be real. I mean, we constantly, obviously, building ourselves to be in a particular way, but at the same time, we have to be understanding of the other person that has potential and they can grow through a certain journey. But there is so much pressure nowadays, because a lot of women are quite well educated and they are professional and they can do a lot that a man can also do and match. So there is the difference of now looking for a potential spouse where some of the mindsets of the man is not even ready to actually have a woman nowadays in the Islamic community, in the Muslim community, who is of that caliber. I don't think we are actually setting ourselves up to raise boys, men in that way so that they can actually match those roles. And I don't mean to lower yourself or have, less dignity or character, but there has to be an understanding that the actual household dynamics has changed. And we're not talking about it enough. We really are not talking about it enough. Now, when you say to know yourself, how does one get to know themselves? It's very easy to say, well, I like this and I'm that. So what are the things that you would actually suggest for somebody to know themselves? Because when you know yourself, then you know what you want, and with the other person. Tell me about that a little bit more.
So personally, like for me, in my journey of, seeking knowledge and hopefully being better, I went traveling, I went traveling. I have amazing teachers, so my spiritual teachers, because I think that's fundamental to who we become and our growth. But also just experiencing life, obviously travel, like as we're taught, those who on that is, for me, traveling was the biggest thing. That's when I found out who I became, understanding what I like, what I don't like, and actually sitting down and really sitting in the silence. I actually went into seclusion for a while because I was like, I need to understand myself, because I'd forgotten who I was, because we get lost in this rat race, right? So, and if we've gone through other stuff, trauma and stuff, work on it. So know yourself is like study, seek both professionally and, for your spirituality, but learning to sit with yourself in the silence, that's how you get to know yourself ultimately.
Oh, wow. That is so profound. I mean, honestly, whatever you're saying is just lifting me higher and higher every time I listen to you. And I hope that the viewers are actually getting this, because this is so true. It is something that we definitely forget, to be in the silence, to be sitting present, and to actually understand what's in our mind and to analyze it ourselves first. Because again, like you said, there is so much noise in this world today, and we are getting carried away with what is the norm, what is supposed to be, looking at other people's pictures and other people's status and trying to copy and paste and make it our own when it doesn't even match us. And then everyone is like kind of looking, feeling and thinking in the particular way, when actually it's okay to be different. It's okay to be single. It's okay to be content and single. But when you're moving on to finding that spouse, you really need to know yourself. And to know yourself, you need that space. You need to even have a space in your mind and your environment. And the fact that you said about traveling, that is so true. I know that from personal experience myself. I could not have known myself even better if I did not have all that traveling, thanks to my parents, especially when I was younger, that we did travel. It was uncomfortable at times. It wasn't even, nice to have the change, but that's when you actually grow. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely. Because the thing is, what for me was like, I want to see, when I was in a previous relationship, I was like, okay, have I changed that much? I need to remember who I was, or do I even want to remember now? I want a new me kind of thing. So that was my whole thinking was that. I literally went traveling around for 6 months. I quit my job. I went traveling. I did some charity work. Alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, Allah facilitated all the things I wanted and so much more. And then just like traveling with other people who are not from your city, you don't know, they don't even speak your language, they eat different food to you. And it was just such an experience. For me, it was life-changing, and that was like the bug I got for traveling, because every time I traveled, I realized that I'm actually nothing, and what we think our current circumstances are, like at every moment anything can happen. So why not live the best life you can within the boundaries of what Allah has given us and has gifted us? Why not live it? Like, He's made this dunya for us to live, but just don't live it in your heart. That's it, class. For me, it's all about that,
Lovely, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I mean, you're so inspiring right now. And I think you're giving so many ideas. And again, I hope that everybody is taking notice and understanding that what you're saying is definitely practical. You can do that right away and you can explore, even if it's just, in your own sort of vicinity. I know it's difficult at this current moment in time to be traveling across the globe, but it is possible to even get out of your comfort zone and just explore with people that are different to your own to understand yourself better. Now, that is so, so wonderful. And I love everything that you're saying. And I'm looking forward to the next part, which we are coming to shortly. We are heading towards another short break. It's going by too quickly for my liking, Amrin, honestly. But hopefully, we are definitely going to get much more out of her in a few moments. Please keep sending your questions in. And again, I really do appreciate all your interaction, your messages. And inshallah, we will be back in a few moments. Stay exactly where you are. Only grab a cup of tea or coffee or something that you would like to relax. Hopefully, we're going to have another interesting section and we'll be discussing more details with Amrin. See you shortly.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. I am so incredibly grateful for my guest tonight. She is so special and wonderful with her experience, her life experience, and more importantly, how she helps others. And she's such a person of the world, I could tell straight away. And you know what? You're just sharing so much for us right now, which is giving us the practical ways of moving to shifting ourselves from being single and finding that amazing spouse, but actually doing it in such a way that we are comfortable with ourselves first. We're not running away from anyone. We're not running away from a situation. We're not trying to avoid something. And I think that is what we need to discuss tonight. And this is why this title is up, is how to show up. It's not about saying, oh, I am somebody, I am something. It's about being. It's so important to be. Now, when we go into the next part, there are certain things, though, even if we are going to be in a particular way, that we also have to be careful of. For example, boundaries. For example, being aware of the red flags, green flags, whatever you want to call it. So how, once you've at that stage of peace and contentment, understanding and having self-awareness, we can't be naive. So Amrin, can you talk us through some of the things that we do need to be aware of? Because it is a scary world out there. We cannot be, sort of like talking about it in a sense where everything's going to happen perfectly for you just because you are showing up in a perfect way. We have to be wise about the decisions we make when we are looking for that potential spouse. So what's your sort of train of thought when it comes to that?
Okay, and my train of thought is, firstly, whether it's on through social media, whether it's through an app, whether it's through like Single Muslim, whether it's through word of mouth, is be savvy to what you might get back, okay? This is for men and women. So when you say something, no, you might get a certain reaction. So be careful about the language you use, okay? And understand that sometimes it takes time to build up communication. So don't write off people straight away. And do things, you know what, do things with the best of intention, but also don't dismiss people because you don't quite get them. Like, have a mature conversation about it. Be really careful of what you're saying, and then again, the responses you might get, because if you're going to say a certain thing and you're going to act in a certain way, and then a brother's going to reply in a certain way, then kind of look at what you've done as well. So be really careful about that. But be very honest. Make sure your profile is exactly what you say you want. Look at maybe some of the non-negotiables. Be very clear and transparent about what you're actually seeking. The other thing is obviously making sure that you're really sure about what you want and whether is it just a massive expectation which isn't real, right? Because I find that a lot of people do that, and even speaking to my own clients is that they have this vision of what they think, but they're not it. As we said earlier, they're not it themselves. So just be savvy, like whether it's through social media, whether it's through an app, whether it's through speaking to like the aunties in the community or at the masjid, whatever it may be. Be savvy to what you're saying and understand the response you might get. So think about the response you want and speak that language, basically, in a nutshell.
I think, you know what, we've never addressed this properly before, but it's so important to actually, you know, understand interaction. That is so true, what you just said, because we talk to each other, we talk communication, but how is that communication coming across from your side and the other person? And then to also sit back, analyze it, don't dismiss it. I mean, these are things, honestly, we do not consider. It's always one way or just from, you know, one side. So it's so true what you're saying. It's so, so vital. I'm really grateful that you've actually mentioned that, because it's so important. We do have actually another question, which I'm going to read out. So inshallah, just bear with me. It says, Salaam alaikum to Fahima and Amrin. And thank you so much for today's show, as spoken about today by Fahima. A question for the two of you from me is, how would you know when you're ready for a partner? That's a really good question. The other part says, how would I know as a Muslim man that I'm ready for a Muslim lady in a relationship? I do feel that I am responsible, honest, and kind, and I'm finding someone part in sort of like in a dating way. So basically, that's a beautiful question. Thank you so much for sending that through. I think there's so many parts to it. So we're going to take our time to address that. Obviously, how do you know when you're ready? And basically, you know, even though you feel honest, responsible, and kind, you know, which is the best way of like, you know, finding someone is sort of like to get to know them, because we talk about dating, right? But at the same time, there is strict rules around that, and people can also be uncomfortable with that word. So let's just, you know, elaborate on that a little bit. But how do you know when you're ready for a partner, or if you are ready as a partner?
For me, it's in a nutshell, it's different for different people, right? So for my kind of experience and what I speak to my clients about as well in the coaching world is, if you know that you're not looking for somebody to fix you because you're already wholesome, you're aware of what you need to work on, you know you might not be praying Fajr every day, but at least you're aware of it and you're working towards it. You're not one of those immature people saying, oh yeah, when I get married, or when I get married, I'll save this much, or when I get married, I'll go for, you know, be honest with yourself of where you're at, but also that you're already complete. The whole point of marriage is to enhance each other and have a more fulfilling life, which is in line with the Quran and Sunnah. So ultimately, if you know that you're already doing all the work, you know, you're not looking for somebody to come and fix you. You're basically looking for somebody to come and enhance you to already who you are, I think, in a nutshell. Like for me. That's so true. I mean, you did mention before even about getting a relationship coach. Now, a lot of us are quite skeptical about that. Now, can you tell me from your sort of opinions and experience, you know, what can that do for somebody? I mean, why would someone invest in a relationship coach, for example? Why is it necessary to even speak in that way to somebody outside about your personal issues and to get yourself involved in some sort of like, you know, coaching sort of journey? And how could that be successful for you in a potential relationship? I love that question, Fahima. You know why? Because I think most people don't go to a relationship coach until they're at the point of they're in a marriage and they're heading towards divorce, and then they see a relationship coach, right? And even then, it's usually the woman who reaches out to a relationship coach to say, I'm having problems in my marriage. What do I do? X, Y, and Z, right? But why would you not invest that in yourself before, so you don't get to that stage, right? For me, it's that. Right. Ultimately, a relationship coach, from my experience with the coaches that I've worked with and people that I recommend, is it helps you to understand who you are, what are your limitations, are your expectations real, are you really being authentic with yourself, and when you're writing a profile, are you just writing a perfect profile which isn't you anyway? So it gives the total when you show up to meet somebody, you're not even that person anyway. You understand your red flags and your green flags, which we've talked about. You understand how to, like, from the relationship coach I had, what I got out of it is understanding female and masculine energy, how to step in and how to step out understanding how the male brain works, understanding what language to use to communicate, and also writing a profile that is truly authentic to who you are. For me, that's what a relationship coach was. Yeah, in a nutshell.
Brilliant,
so yeah,
brilliant.
definitely get one. Honestly, like it did for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, that was brilliant sort of feedback. I love that, the question that I put across to you, because I think it's important. We have to look at it from both sides. And just to add to that, actually, when you do talk into a professional, and make sure that they are professional when they are coaching you, that, you know, at the end of the day, it is private. It is confidential. Sometimes, yes, you've got friends, you've got family, and it's great to connect and tell them your story. But sometimes later on around, you know, down the line, it can come back and bite you a little bit. Okay. So just be careful who you share information, especially when it's coming to looking for a spouse and, you know, or not feeling great yourself. It can come back and, you know, actually, you know, be quite detrimental sometimes. So when you speak to a professional, you know that story is safe. You know that they're not even invested in your story because it's non-biased, it's non-judgmental. They're coming from real psychological strategies, techniques, and tools that's going to give you the actual equipment yourself to work on yourself and open up the potential that's already within you. It's like looking in the mirror every day. We know exactly how we look, but we still look in the mirror, right? Because we need that reassurance. We need that reflection. And that's exactly what a coach does. And it's so important to have one. So when it comes to even like we talked about, you know, red flags, boundaries. Now, as much as we need to sort of like be understanding of the other person's needs and our own, sometimes we can't compromise. What would be advice on what can be compromised and things that shouldn't be compromised that's going to get you to that successful relationship?
Oh, okay. So I would say, you know what, is until you don't have that mature conversation with the person, for me, in a nutshell, is are you willing to give up on that for that person? If it's something that really doesn't work for them, it might later, but it's just not at that time, because we all evolve in terms of when we are in our relationships, we're growing, right? So, for example, something fundamental, someone might not be okay, like we spoke about this at the start, is so a brother might not be okay with his wife working, right? But later on, he might change, he might understand, and he might say, okay, you know what, my wife is actually going to be a lot happier, she's working, and it's not something that I disagree with. But if you're going to go from the head go that, you know what, actually I'm not going to compromise on this, and this, how are you going to compromise the rest of your relationship in your marriage? Like, you're going to be seeing a relationship coach or a mediator pretty soon. So look at what is really fundamental that you cannot compromise. For example, another example, if you got somebody like me who's quite happy, I want to travel, I want to live outside of the UK, that's me right now, right? But somebody who doesn't, then that might not work in the future, right? So be really clear what is compromising and what you're willing to give up and what you're not willing to. Again, it's that what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not willing to tolerate, you know?
Excellent. I've actually got a question for you myself with what you've just said. I'm gonna address it soon, but again, I think what you said was really, really interesting, and I do want to pick it up. But we're going to do that after the break because we are coming to one shortly. Again, it's the final break that we have. Please do stay with us. It's really important that we continue with your interaction, with your questions. Again, you know, this is important topics that we're raising only for the benefit of the viewers, of our Muslim community, to enhance our generations, that we can have a much stronger society. And it does start with a family unit. And it's important that we understand that this is, you know, part of our faith in order to not just find a spouse, but to find one where it's going to have, inshallah, long-lasting, fulfilled relationships. But again, we are coming into a very short break. Make sure you stay where you are and join us shortly. We will have more questions for Amrin and discuss more issues around the topic. We'll see you shortly. See you soon. Take care. Salam.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by singlemuslim.com. And can you believe it? We're at the final part of the episode already. This is absolutely crazy. We have a really fantastic topic, and we are discussing some important, crucial ideas around showing up for a successful relationship. We have kind of just touched on it a little bit, but I wanted to go deeper into this conversation because a lot of us do struggle, especially when you're single and, you're feeling down and you think, how am I going to find someone? And you guys have to rewind. You need to go back and you need to listen to the first part, the second part, because now we're on the third part. And inshallah, you're going to get so much value for this. Before the break, Amrin, you were talking about compromise and how sometimes we don't compromise enough. But I want to question the fact that if we are actually also compromising, thinking that change is going to happen, right? Sometimes it's important to realize that change may never happen. So if you're going to compromise on something, it might just be long term. Not because a lot of people think, well, I'll compromise now because he's going to or she's going to change. But that change will never happen. Their ideas are stuck. So you need to be very careful on that point. Otherwise, you will be really setting yourself up for a fall. And a lot of things that you feel you can compromise because you think in your mind is short term, but the other person doesn't. So again, how would you sort of query that so that you know that there's potential for growth? Because some people don't grow in their relationships. And that's another reason why there's a lot of breakdown, because one grows and the other one doesn't. And they have an expectation in their own quiet mind without sharing it, and in the hope it will happen, but it doesn't.
And I think that's what is so important for him. Like you said, is that when people go into a relationship, they think the other person's going to change, but they don't need to. Like, the thing you're asking the other potential, or even your spouse, if you're in that marriage, are you wanting them to change? But if the shoe was on the other foot, would you compromise that as well? Ask yourself that. Be honest with yourself, because I think what happens is there's some things that are short term and they can grow and people will evolve. But that's why at the outset it's so important about the fundamental things, or what's important. Like, are you going to buy a house? Do you believe in it? Do you want to move abroad? Is it going to be a short-term thing? Is it going to be a long-term thing? Children, do you want children? How many children? Are you going to live with in-laws? Are you not going to live with in-laws? What kind of job do you want to do? Are you both going to work? Are you not going to work? Is it going to be a 50-50 household? X, Y, Z. It needs to be, that honest conversation before you get to that stage, because what to end up, like, speaking to other relationship coaches, speaking to even people who are single and seeking marriage, some of the things that they ask and they look at, and I have a lot of people that I speak to, people who contact me regularly. I want to speak to this person, but you know what, he's not willing to compromise. I'll go, well, are you willing to compromise on that? Like, if he asks you to shift that or change that and adapt, are you going to willing to? And I think the caveat is, are you willing to give up that thing to ensure that just because of that one thing that you're not going to have a fruitful marriage? Like, balance it out, be real with yourself, that if that's something you're not willing to give up now, then what else are you going to be faced with in the future in that relationship? Are you going to be able to work with that, and that's the honesty, just be real, because there's some things are worth giving up and there's just some things that aren't, so
that's true. I mean, marriage is also a sacrifice. And sometimes you do need to sacrifice and tolerate a little bit as well. Obviously, your values and certain things that, again, Islam is very important to abide by. But if that's being infringed upon, then you do not compromise that. But there's a lot of other things that you can compromise. And yes, it is a sticky situation because we are all in different levels. We are all in different stages. And some things, like, even if it's not important to one person, it is to the other, because maybe, for example, they've worked years in their studies to become a GP, and now their husband's like, well, no, I want you to stay at home. And I've actually encountered that myself with a lot of my clients as well, where, this is the problem. They've worked for years, and now that they're married, their husband wants them to stay at home and look after their kid. Right or wrong, we're not discussing that. We're talking about this is what they feel that is what they need. And do they give up that career path? Do they even try to compromise that, even if that's manageable or not? And things do change over time. Absolutely, it can change, but there's a lot of things that you need to address from the beginning, and you can't foresee the future either, as much as you even put this down at the beginning. But I think the more you discuss, like, I've had people come and say, like, certain young women especially, they'll say, well, I can't ask him that because he might run away. And I'm like, well, let him run away at the beginning then. That's the way you know if he's right or wrong. So even having those uncomfortable conversations, it's not that easy. Do you think that there's a way around having that kind of conversation where you don't feel scared that they're going to run away because you're asking them all these questions, and to say, well, have you got this? Have you got that? I'm going to put this in the contract. I'm going to put that in the contract, because now this is what's happening, because people are trying to close the deal and make sure they've sealed it so tight that there's no loopholes so that if anything was to go wrong, they're covered. Literally, that's how it's working. And at one point, it becomes a little bit overwhelming, even for that potential spouse, or even for you to discuss every little thing, which is normal, when now it's not normal. It has to be written. Everything has to be written down. Like, what's your take on that?
Well, Subhanallah, it's funny you said that, because I did actually want to talk about the same topic, because I speak to so many people who consider marriage, right? And I said, before you even get to that stage saying, yes, right, go and have some premarital counseling, right? Understand the fiqh of marriage and the fiqh of divorce, right? If you understand that, you will understand your own limitations, or what you're supposed to, and the way we need to all show up in our marriage, right? And I think it's really important when you're in that process of getting to know somebody, is have these honest conversations. And if you think you can't do that yourself, get a chaperone, get a relationship coach, get some kind of mediator, get your local imam, whoever you trust, who you know is going to speak on your behalf, both for men and women, on both sides. I'm not just saying just women, and have that honest conversation before you start writing things out. Again, it comes to that thing of, what is it that you're willing to tolerate, what you're willing to compromise, or is it just becoming a contract? Then what's the sanctity of marriage then? Like, for me, that just loses it all. Like, it becomes like it's just taking the love out of what marriage is about. I know we're supposed to write things down, and some people are not okay with doing the contracts, but it did happen. There's evidence to say it happened in the time of our Sahabas, and that's why it's advised of to do now. But a lot of people don't do it. Then this is why so many couples go into marriage by not having these discussions, not having a contract, and it's getting the adults involved, but then the parents are involved, but then the couple themselves are not speaking, like, because there's that shyness, there's that whole, how can we ask that question? Just be honest, like, come on. Like, I speak to sisters and brothers who are like in their mid-30s, and they don't even have these honest conversations. I was like, if you can't do that now, and that you're worried about that person running away, then maybe they need to run away. Maybe you're not compatible. But after all, just be honest then. Don't chase this, what you think is right now. It actually might not, because if you're worried the other person's going to run, chances are that maybe you're not in the right place, and you need to maybe change the narrative of the conversation you're actually having. Do you know what I mean? And get someone to mediate. If you feel you're not capable of doing, or you think that person's going to run, get somebody who knows how to speak and say, to get your message across, Absolutely.
And also, on the other hand, like, when you do have a contract and write everything down, if that person wants to stand by it, they'll stand by it. But even in a contract, in a marriage contract where everything's written, people can still go outside that contract regardless. And unfortunately, it's about the character of the person, the value of the person, the dignity of that person, which, a lot of the times, can hopefully remain if that's who you found at the beginning that you're happy with, but it will change over time. So as much as you want to seal it tight, you just got to also trust in Allah and, make that dua that it does actually get fulfilled, because it's not the contract that's going to make that marriage. It's, the two of you trying to come in with the right intention, like you said, and to constantly build yourself, not just before marriage, but during marriage. And it's constant work. In a marriage, it is constant work for two people to come together. And Amrin, you know what? We're coming towards the end of the show, and I'm so sad about that, because I could talk to you for another couple of hours. Easily, we could go on for another couple of hours. But I want to leave it with you having some final thoughts about this, because you've already shared so much. But again, I want to give you the opportunity to share a little bit more before we end, and also some of your details, so that maybe if anyone wants to reach you, then that's also a possibility. So, we've got a couple of minutes, so please take it away.
Okay. So in summary, it'd say, for me, is those of you who are single, seeking marriage, is look at yourself and think, would you want to marry you, basically? So marry yourself first. I like to use that. Marry yourself first, show up for yourself. And then when you become that, or what your expectations are, you will automatically attract that. And most of all, I'd say to anyone seeking a partner, doesn't matter which way you're doing it, whatever works for you, but just do it with the best of intentions. Choose your words in your language with how you would like to be received as well. But just be transparent, be honest, come from a good place, make dua, but also just enjoy the journey. A lot of people get stressed out about it. They worry that they're going to get rejected. And before they even have that, like from a psychological point of view, they already build themselves up that they think that they're going to be rejected. As long as you're doing things in the right way, you're not going to offend anyone, then just, go for it. But, follow the journey, enjoy it. And at the end of the day, you attract what you are. I truly believe that. And I think if you're not in a good place and you're trying to get yourself out of something, then work on that situation first before you say, you know what, I want to get married and it's the only way I can get happiness. Make yourself wholesome first and ask Allah to guide you. Ultimately, ask Allah, find spiritual teachers, seek the deen, understand, work on like understanding the fiqh of marriage. There's so many courses online right now. There's lots of free courses as well. Tap into those resources that are out there, understand the fiqh of marriage and for divorce. I have pre-marital counselling, making sure you're in the right place to be, seeking a partner,
Lovely. Give me your details before we end, Amrin, please.
My details are so on Instagram and on Facebook, I'm Amrin Razak, and it's called Coaching on Instagram. My website's currently being working at the moment, but yeah, those are the ways you can contact me.
Thank you so, so much. A brilliant guest tonight. Lovely to have you and to share with me on tonight's show. I can't thank you enough. Honestly, you've been so splendid with everything you've shared, so honest and open. And I love everything that you said. And inshallah, I only wish you more success in your business, in your work, and to help others. Thank you so much, Amrin, for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Again, another beautiful episode. And I really do appreciate all of you for interacting with us and sending in your messages and talking to us constantly. But we will be back with another episode next week, and keep them coming through. And inshallah, we will have more guests, more topics, and we'll see you same time next week. Take care. Have a lovely evening. Assalamu alaikum.